Hello Australia and welcome to What Lies in the Sunday Telegraph, a weekly read through Australia's biggest selling newspaper to try and figure out, using the power of critical thinking, what's actually happening in the country as opposed to what the paper's trying to tell us. Large parts of the country are ablaze. It's an unprecedented bushfire emergency very early in the season. It's being caused by rises in average temperatures, which are being driven by a fossil fuel industry, which has our government and the opposition completely in its control, so no action is being taken and the subject's being ignored even while the cities are shrouded in smoke. Welcome to 2019. It's not quite how we thought the future was going to be, is it? And what have we got on the cover of the Australia's #1 selling newspaper in this time of emergency and astonishing political... the laws of defamation don't allow the accurate words to be used, do they? We know what's happening. What's on the cover, huh? Well, no fires. Nothing to worry about then, huh? Okay, so Kyle's new girl is in cop assault drama. That's Kyle Sandilands. Good work. Hawk daughters rape shock, page 5. And we built a new zoo, opening day, page 13. That's New Sydney Zoo in Blacktown. So that the oiks won't be traipsing their way through to Taronga anymore. And I imagine quite a lot of advertising money has gone to this paper in exchange for this coverage. Exclusive, Our City in the Sky. High rise to soar past Sydney Tower as height limit scrapped. Skyscrapers will dwarf Sydney Tower, the city's tallest building, in a historic move to change building height restrictions in the CBD. The deal to supercharge the skyline will allow both an extra 350,000 office jobs and more people to live in the city. It could force a rethink on the decision to reject plans for the Ritz-Carlton Hotel at Star Casino. Urban Affairs writer Ben Pike reports, page 11. So Sydney's going high-rise, which will make numerous property developers super happy. Also, drug allegations. Look, you've got to have a blonde woman on the cover of the Sunday Telegraph. There's a law or something. Not the most convincing blonde, I grant you. Drug allegations, the Ice Queen and her hot sauce special. Sydney Glamour charged over 300 million chili bust, page 15. Interesting, the word glamour is now being used to describe women, which I know has been in the colloquial for probably 15 years, but to make its way into a newspaper is a interesting step. So I've got a small dog just off camera playing with a squeaky toy, which she's been good right now, but we'll see how that goes. If you're hearing funny noises, there we go. Hearing funny noises, that's why. Small dogs and they're happy with their squeaky toys is more important than most of the other things we're doing here. Right, page 3. Mob killer sues over lawyer ex-cop sex. This is everything the Sunday Telegraph loves, isn't it? Gangland killer has become the first former client to sue Nicola Gobbo, better known as Lawyer X. The man, who can't be named for legal reasons but has multiple convictions, including for manslaughter, could trigger an avalanche of claims if successful. Gobbo represented the man on several occasions, including a high-profile drug bust involving an allegedly corrupt police. The barrister failed to tell him she was having a sexual relationship with one of his co-accused, a police officer to whom she also gave legal advice. Yeah, well, there's a Royal Commission into this one. There's a reason for it. Kyle's new lover to be charged over cop assault. Bentley door torn off in 7 a.m. Bondi street spat. I really feel for the people of Bondi having to put up with all these Channel 9 bigwigs. Tegan Kynaston is the new woman who puts up with Kyle in exchange for fame and money, because I doubt it's for his personality. Certainly not for his looks. Ms. Kynaston, 33, who works as Director of Communications for Sandilands King Kyle Company, was arrested and later taken to St Vincent Hospital for a mental health evaluation. She would be charged with assaulting police and issued a future court attendance notice. Right, so it's after a bizarre roadside dispute involving the celebrity couple. The Sunday Telegraph can reveal the radio star, that's Kyle, asked a bystander to call Triple O after Ms. Kynaston allegedly damaged his luxury Bentley while exiting the car. Calling the Rosses on your missus who works for you is going to make for a very difficult day at the office on Monday, isn't it? While speaking with the woman, it will be alleged in court that she assaulted one of the officers before being taken to hospital for a mental health assessment. Employees were asked to delete all pictures, especially any feature of Tegan and Kyle together. That's something. After Miss Kynaston had been taken away, a witness said police helped Sanderlands secure the damaged door of his black Bentley valued at close to $350,000 so that he could leave. Couldn't happen to anyone nicer, could it? So we come to Mixed Picks, which is normally on page 2, but that got taken with the Heart Foundation's ad for a serial killer at large. That would be heart disease. So the editor's picks of what's the best thing in this whole newspaper. We start with In Bed with Sarah and Joe. The hosts of Morning Show Studio 10, Sarah Harris and Joe Hildebrand, talk about having an opinion in an age of constant rage and having their own TV show to share their opinions. God help the fact that other people are allowed to have opinions that aren't particularly flattering to Ms. Harris and Joe Hildebrand, but I'm glad that's the most important story in this newspaper, in this bushfire emergency. 18 water parks that will make your kids scream. Right, anti-vaxxers pay attention. The deadly measles epidemic in Samoa is a taste of what can happen if people listen to your claptrap. Again, I am pro-vaccination. Let there be no doubt. But the anti-vaxxer rhetoric is, as is usual, the pendulum always swings too far, doesn't it? Tips for a stress-free Christmas. Yeah, I reckon this paper's going to help me with that, isn't it? Christmas catch. 7 seafood recipes for the perfect Aussie Christmas feast. Paid for by the fish markets, no doubt. You're a phony, selfish leech. Barefoot investor Scott Pape takes on his critics. That's one of the best things in the paper, apparently. 9 answers Star Wars 9 owes its fans. As we wait for the final installment of Moviedom's most loved franchise, Duncan Lay, Westeros correspondent, asks whether it will resolve the big questions. You're not owed crap, mate. None of us are owed anything. Annika Smeta, so political correspondent, not crime reporter. Page 5, Hawke's rape bombshell. This is actually about Rosalind Dillon, is her name. Her name is not Hawke. Rosalind Dillon, the daughter of Bob Hawke, claims her father told her not to report an alleged rape by a Labour MP to protect his prime ministerial ambitions. The explosive allegations are detailed in a multi-million-dollar legal claim Ms. Dillon has made on her father's estate following his death in May and revealed last night by the New Daily. Good scoop for the New Daily. Bad luck Sunday Telegraph. The New Daily does have deep union links. This story gets better and better, doesn't it? Ms. Dillon claimed she told her father that his colleague and confidant Bill Landeyu assaulted her while she worked in his office in the 1980s. She alleges the rapes took place at the Hilton Hotel at Victoria's Parliament House and a Melbourne home. Mr. Landeyu, a former ALP power broker and one-time state minister, is the father-in-law of Victorian Senator Kimberley Kitching and father of former political blogger and Labour figure Andrew Landeyu. The Sunday Telegraph understands the Landeyu family were not aware of the accusations by Ms. Dillon until recently, despite spending time with the Hawke family over the years. I think we're going to leave that there. That is an interesting look into the world of Labour. I'd look that up in line if that is something that interests you. Racing's Brawl of the Roses. Fists, pants, ties and flowers were flying at the gates of a Sydney racecourse yesterday and Nobi was the winner. 10 minutes after the final race at Rosehill finished, fists were flying as an argument descended into chaos around 6:30pm. As a pair of men ripped at each other's ties and pants. It's handbags at 10 paces, isn't it? Help arrived from an unusual direction. Underturned by the punches flying from every angle, a woman dressed in a race-appropriate floral jumpsuit whacked one of the men with her bouquet of roses, sending petals flying. Anyway, there are pictures of all this from... there's no credit on the photos, sadly. I almost question whether this was staged. Oh, pictures, Mark Evans, Getty Images. So well done, Mark Evans from Getty Images. These are some amazing photos. I'll try and show you. So you've got a woman in the floral jumpsuit belting oiks. That one's quite good. Wow, that is a page of interesting news in the Sunday Telegraph. Nothing to do with fires or climate change, but well done. Okay, now we've got 2 pages, starting page 6 and 7. Part of the bone dry feature, which is like, let's denude the environmental flows to give money to soy and cotton. And nuts, I'm told. The almond growers have also realised that water is tragically underpriced in the Australian agricultural system and have moved in. None of them struggling small family steadings, mind you. This is all big agribusiness. Well, obviously it's not all big agribusiness. That's why they can wheel out the little farmers. D-Day hits the coast. Oh, here's some sideways mention of climate. Hottest and driest year ever. Wonder why that is, folks. I wonder why that is. Right, Sydney's into level 2 water restrictions. Sprinklers have been banned. Right, Annika Smethurst, once again tackling the tough issues in politics, says more than 1/3 of federal politicians have skipped a day of Parliament since the election. Oh, I don't particularly want to be defending parliamentarians. They're well paid and capable of defending themselves. But they do also have an enormous number of official duties and functions to attend across a very large country. And if 1/3 have missed one day of sitting, then I really don't feel that's particularly noteworthy or even worrisome. That seems like they're all pretty committed and hard at work. A second Epstein victim claims to have had sex with Prince. That's Prince Andrew. Let's be clear on that. We've got another thing about the huge skyrise. So the new limit, so, you think Centrepoint Tower in Sydney, they call it Sydney Tower these days, but, the big bronze knob on the top of a needle. That's 309 metres and the new height limit's 330 metres. So that tower's rapidly going to be out of business as a landmark, isn't it? Okay, here's a good story. Elderly elephant wows the crowd. Australia's last circus elephant, Saigon, is now a star at Sydney Zoo. Anything that gives old elephants a home, I'm in favour of. So I take back all my criticism. Never had criticism of Sydney Zoo. It's just the way it's spun in the media. Anyway, homes for old elephants, I'm in favour of. Linda Silmalis has a real scoop here. You pay to store sick crim sperm. 2 convicted criminals have been allowed to store their sperm at taxpayer expense so they can father children after they're released from prison. Other inmates are also enjoying therapies such as aromatherapy, iridology, and in special cases, cosmetic surgery and tattoo removal in jail. If we can get the horrible tattoos off them so they can get jobs when they leave prison, I think the saving to the community is going to be quite more significant. These stories are such garbage. They cherry-pick funny little details, take them out of context, and just use them to rev up people who want to be enraged. And then Joe Hildebrand opines about how terrible the rage is a few pages further on. All right, so Glamour Girl. They've put girl in instead of just calling her a glamour in this headline, so progress, I suppose. Although a 24-year-old woman is possibly not a girl. Had Aladdin's Cave of Booty, 300 million ice bust arrests. She had MDMA, coke and pot, a semi-automatic pistol, and 640 grand in cash. Yeah, these hauls, it's easy to make it sound awesome. And if I was writing this, I'd have done the same thing. No criticism there. But when you look at it sensibly, if you got a huge pile of drugs that you're selling, you build up a huge pile of cash because lots and lots of people want to pay a lot of money for drugs. And then you need the pistol to stop the bikies from taking it all away from you. I don't know if a 24-year-old is actually going to use the pistol, but if it makes her, that's why she's got it, it makes her feel somewhat safer in a very dangerous line of trade. Alexia Vrakar, 24, is allegedly linked to the importation of $300 million worth of cocaine, $300 million worth of ice concealed in bottles of sriracha sauce, which is kind of awesome. I like that. That's why they call it making jokes about chili. Very funny. Barefoot class in schools. It might not make you a billionaire, although it could, but it will help you stay off welfare and out of debt. At the very least, young people would leave school being able to save, manage finances and invest in the stock market. That's a terrible sentence. Under a financial literacy scheme being devised by New South Wales Treasurer Dominic Perrottet. One thing I find is it's a lot easier to be financially literate when you've got some finances. And blaming people with no income and no assets and not having large amounts of money left to them by family members, as some people have, is, say, oh, they're just not financially literate. They, went to a payday lender which had terrible terms. If only they'd be able to read the terms and conditions. Well, when they've struggling to they've got no money to put food on the table for their kids, you take the finance you can get, don't you? Private insurance rise. Australians will see the smallest rise in private health insurance premiums next year since 2001, according to Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt. Okay, radical plan to ditch royal family. Annika Smethurst raises her head against. Interesting picture of Prince Charles. One thing you've got to love about the Sunday Telegraph, Murdoch's hatred of the royal family does keep them on the Republican wagon. Australia could ditch the British monarchy and become a republic without a referendum, according to a radical plan being pushed by a Labor MP. Labor backbencher Julian Hill, a staunch Republican, has sought legal advice on the proposal, which would see state and federal MPs vote to change royal succession laws, which would end the practice of the Queen's heirs becoming Australia's head of state. He believes the Parliament, not the people, could amend the law so that when Queen Elizabeth dies, the current Governor-General becomes our head of state, bypassing her descendants. Under the plan, the Governor-General would then serve no more than 5 years, with a successor appointed by the Chief Justice of the High Court on the advice of both Houses of Parliament with a two-thirds vote. So that's the model rejected by the Australian people in a referendum. Professor of Constitutional Law at Monash University, Luke Beck, said it's not that preposterous, while pointing out it would need the support of all the states. Look, I think Australians for constitutional monarchy are a bunch of enormous dickbags, but I think the campaign they'd be able to run against that kind of constitutional end run would be beautiful to watch. I almost hope they try it, just so that we can see the reaction. Okay, David Pocock has made page 17. This is the very principled and well thought through Wallabies flanker, rugby player, originally from Zimbabwe. Rugby great David Pocock and wife Emma have declared they would rather save the planet than have children. It's a decision you can't make lightly, whether or not you want to have kids, Pocock said. It's something we have spoken about a lot. I guess even if you look at it just in terms of an ecological carrying capacity, to take the emotional side out of it, we are way over carrying capacity at the moment. Someone has got to stop kids, but who wants to be told that? It's worth putting it on the agenda, but frankly, I think the world could do with more young Pococks. And that's, are you going to leave the future to people, the other people? Get some sort of really tribal arguments about population policy then. Claire Masters reports that school kids will be encouraged to study Indigenous languages, but not French, Mandarin or German, in a move one Sydney headmaster says will yield better results. I think Indigenous studies, including language, should be taught in Australian schools, but I don't think it should be at the expense of foreign languages, which are really taught for a totally different purpose, which is an outward-looking one versus an inward-looking one. So I'd really prefer, personally, if I was keen, not to make that an either-or kind of judgment. Headline, strangled at toilet block. A man has been charged with strangling and assaulting a woman at a toilet block until she became unconscious. The 29-year-old man was arrested yesterday in Hunter Street, Newcastle, over the 18 November attack. The 25-year-old victim was allegedly strangled until she was rendered unconscious at a toilet block in Bridgeman Road, Singleton. He allegedly then forcibly placed the woman inside his car, assaulted her and threatened her with a hammer. She jumped out of the moving car before alerting police. That sounds terrifying. Okay, here's a good one. Doomsday man cave, weapons stash in shed for when society breaks down. A former prison guard turned doomsday prepper claimed he needed military-grade weapons and thousands of bullets stashed on his Sydney property for when anarchy consumes society. I do love how the people who prep for this are so keen for anarchy to consume society so that they and their guns can rule over all of us. Duncan Lay manages to get in the front of the paper talking about Baby Yoda. This is from The Mandalorian, the Disney Plus show. And it's kind of funny because Disney didn't do any merchandise for Baby Yoda because they didn't want the merchandise pipeline to tip people off that the character was coming. And now a whole bunch of enterprising factories around the world are taking their Yoda merchandise and trying to resell it as Baby Yoda merchandise, which is funny. And there's going to be... I'm not sure how many kids wanting a Baby Yoda plush toy are going to notice that it's actually a Yoda plush toy. There's probably not a huge amount of harm done there. Okay, so the Heart Foundation's ad has turned into a plug on page 20 to take an online heart age test. Police dog unit now has unmarked cars after they were targeted by bikie gangs and criminals. Good to know. Tanya Plibersek says we need kindness. We need to defossilise the economy, Tanya. When are you going to have a policy for that? Okay, the anti-vax roots of Samoa's tragedy. Blame the poor people for not trusting the often abusive medical system. Again, I am pro-vaccine. I'm just saying that people in the third world with a fear of Western medicine are not actually being that stupid. There are very recent terrible cases of awful things happening. And to say, oh, look at these silly Samoans is pretty ignorant. But they do need now to get the vaccine. And we need to make sure that it's available to them at reasonable prices. Okay, the source, political gossip with Anna Kosmetis, Linda Silmalis and Miranda Wood. Ministers slap down to veterans. So we've got a veteran in his uniform with all his medals. Stuart Robert, it's either Stuart Roberts or Angus Taylor, isn't it? The Federal Minister for Government Services has refused to apologise for sending a series of terse emails to a 67-year-old veteran who raised concerns about the National Disability Insurance Scheme. In an email exchange on Tuesday, Mr. Robert fired off 2 missives from his parliamentary account, accusing the pensioner of getting his facts wrong and threatening to automatically delete any future emails. The unusual response was triggered by an email from Vietnam veteran Lindsay Lake, who emailed the minister saying he was annoyed by the multi-billion-dollar underspend on disability services and urged him to take charge of your useless department. I'm glad someone's getting stuck into Stuart Robert. The fight to be the pre-selected as the Liberal candidate for Warringah is well underway. Apparently Troy Grant's in the running to be the chair of the International Rugby League. He's a former New South Wales Nationals leader. Driver fatigue. The drivers chauffeuring Berejiklian government ministers and Labor leader Jodie McKay around town are used to clocking up overtime. In fact, they rely on it to bolster their salaries. But the source understands the hours some drivers are being asked to work has become a health and safety issue. A union delegate said his shift lasting 16 hours was not uncommon. With the New South Wales Department of Premier and Cabinet conducting a staffing review, the drivers will be hoping for a better deal. Given the secrets the ever-discreet drivers would collectively hold, it would be foolish not to resolve things quickly. Good point. Federal Labor MP Lisa Chester's had a good reason to miss the final sitting week of the year, the arrival of her daughter. Well done, her. Okay, bribes and bans banish Russia from every sport is the headline. Look at those scary Eastern Russians. Russia panic lives eternal, particularly actually in the Australian psyche. I think we just like to join in with the English view of the world, don't we? DJ says it wants to kiss and make up with customers. David Jones will unveil the latest stage of its glitzy $200 million makeover when its new ground level precinct opens on Tuesday, just in time for Christmas. Still not going to go shopping in David Jones at Christmas. Not going to happen. I mean, look at me, I'm not the target market for this, but I'd be pretty surprised if people they do have as their target market actually want in. The Snitch, Law and Order gossip with Ava Benny Morrison and Brendan Hills. Rachel Louise, the ex-girlfriend of killer Simon Gittany, has been admitted as a lawyer. Ex-girlfriend, not guilty herself. The fact she's pretty and makes for a good photo probably has more to do with her placement in this. Instagram comedy star Celeste Barber and her husband, tree surgeon Appy Robin, have quit the New South Wales Central Coast for the Tweed Heads. This is in celebrity property news, because why would you just have property news when you can have shitty Sydney celebrities sending in their news, I imagine. I imagine it's an easy beat. The mailbox stays pretty full there. Taxpayers hand cash to Chinese company despite security fears, railing over Huawei deal. Fresh contracts to operate critical parts of New South Wales infrastructure. The railing over Huawei deals because railways are involved. Uma. Right, we've got news of Kevin Paris, it's a heartbreaking story. A kid with obviously quite severe needs. Calling it a special halo. ICE arrest, mum's put up as bail. A man allegedly behind a drug importation has managed to secure bail after putting his mother's multi-million-dollar home up as surety. Well, here's a sad story. Puppy shot with arrow. An 8-month-old puppy named Bucket has been put down after he was allegedly shot in the back with an arrow fired from a longbow. This is in Queensland. The man was arrested and charged. Fired 3 arrows at the puppy. Page 38 is some sort of wraparound thing bigging up Star Wars as if that means more bigging up. The 9 questions that must be answered. I'm glad we don't have any more important pressing news to talk about. I don't know why coal mining is completely in control of Labor and Liberal parties. Well, you could ask yourself why the only party that doesn't take corporate donations is also the only one with a serious policy about decarbonising the economy. That would be the Greens. Just throwing that out there. Jog racing still has a page. Golf. It's amazing how much you can talk about rugby league even when the season isn't on, isn't it? Ian Chappell's got a column. If you like cricket, Ian Chappell is always interesting. He thinks New Zealand are going to be much tougher than Pakistan. Certainly one would hope so. So they come armed with pace as well as swing and good batsmen. And it'd be humiliating if the country lost to New Zealand now, wouldn't it? But they have such a better rugby team and political leadership and all the things we'd like to have. World news. The death riding of Corbyn by the Murdoch press continues. Corbyn limps to finish. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn clashed yesterday in the last head-to-head debate before a general election on December 12. Mostly it was an underpowered showdown that saw both men stick to well-worn phrases and promises about plans for Brexit in the future. The biggest fireworks came when Johnson brought up Corbyn's links in support of the IRA in the 1980s, including meeting with convicted terrorists, marching in support of them, and sponsoring conferences where jailed IRA killers were described as prisoners of war. That's some yellow journalism, isn't it? Devoid of the political context of the time. It's funny how the right has all these pundits with, links to death squads and regimes guilty of crimes against humanity, and that never gets brought up about them. Henry Kissinger still gets portrayed as a statement in these pages. But, some support for the Republican side of the Irish struggles, and my God, you're a terrorist. Apparently Greta is rocking activists. I mean, any chance to get a peek. Even the Sunday Telegraph can't help but put Greta wherever they can. Elon Musk winning his defamation case, really more to do with American defamation law, which in general, I like American defamation law. It's one of the few things I'd take from that country if possible. Anyway, you can call someone a pedo guy if you say that that's just a random thing. You're not calling them a pedophile. Some might imagine that Elon Musk's access to justice is better than Vernon Unsworth's, and that might be what we're seeing there as well. Right, we're shaming Angela Merkel. Merkel's shame as she finally visits Auschwitz. She actually said she had a feeling of deep shame, and they've used that to tar her because she's a lefty. Now, this is quite clever. There's a blank page, and a tiny bit of text says, "Thanks to KO, this ad's been 99% removed. As for our cricket, that's 100% ad break free during play." Well done, man. I mean, cricket is such a great game for TV in that every 6 balls you get a break and play. You can stick an ad in, but anywho. Right, Mafia men are Reg Squeal, the Dobb fathers. Oh, this is Frank Modafferi. Right, Italian investigators are hoping for a historic chance to crack down on the Calabrian Mafia. Now, I think it's called Nandretta, in which the leaders in Australia are known to dine with leading politicians on a quite regular basis. All right, Scott Pope's got so little to say about investment that he's just reading his mail. And so we turn to Peter Credlin. Right, Peter Credlin's thumbs down. It's a tie between the US jury that says it's okay for billionaire Elon Musk to call the Thai cave rescue a pedo guy, and the South Australian police officer who stoned a wombat but won't face charges because he's Indigenous, so that's apparently okay. I agree with Peter. Ouch, that hurts. About Elon Musk, I do not want to buy into Indigenous practices regarding wombats. I certainly think that Peter holding a lofty opinion on it is a bit crap. Thumbs up to making Shane Stone the new government's drought boss is the best chance yet for the bush. The former Liberal leader himself, and a bloke that spent plenty of time in the bush. I mean, it's a big country, rural Australia, but he's been to a bit of it. Stone speaks his mind and doesn't suffer fools regardless of how important they might think they are. I wonder which fools she's talking about. Peter says, now all we need is a vigorous kickstart. Noting Sir Robert Menzies was the last Prime Minister to retire on their own terms. She's telling Scott Morrison he is to make the most of his time at the top. Geez, taking a while to make a point. Here we go. Energy is still a big issue. Running our power system to reduce emissions rather than to produce affordable, reliable 24/7 power is hurting low to middle income Australia. I reckon the fires raging across the country, the air that we can barely breathe. It's a bit of a worry. Then there's water. We want more dams, and they might get rid of the Murray-Darling Basin Plan. No, we're not going to deal with the unsustainable forms of agriculture, the cotton, the soy, and the nuts. No. Maximise extraction. That is, you look at Scott Morrison's revamp of the public service, which I note has not really been covered so far, but we'll see. Prime Minister, this is Peter Gleeson, who used to have to share a page with Peter Credlin. So that's P-E-T-A, Credlin, woman. P-E-T-R, Gleeson, he, him. Share the love, save the bush, Peter Gleeson says. Prime Minister Scott Morrison likes to talk about how the quiet Australians couldn't give a hoot about the Canberra bubble. He's spot on. It's an incestuous bear pit, and just as US President Donald Trump vowed to drain the swamp in Washington, now it's time to bust the bubble in Canberra. Trump is the swamp, and Morrison is the bubble. Oh, here we go. As our regions suffer under the weight of drought, the US-China trade war, and the left's obsession with hurting farmers and ending mining jobs, 2 out of 3 ain't bad there, Peter. Mr. Morrison has a golden opportunity to demonstrate the leadership rural Australians are demanding. It would be a symbolic as well as economic fix. The time has come for the decentralisation of the entire Australian government. Instead of every Commonwealth department being based in Canberra, only an obvious few would remain in the nation's capital. It would mean the transformation up to a dozen local economies as thousands of public servants made their way to cities outside Canberra. Here's where they should go. Agriculture and water resources to Bathurst, Attorney General. Oh, that'll stay in Canberra. Communications and... Oh, I'm taking the arts to Darwin, eh? Defence to Townsville. Education to Wollongong. Employment to Newcastle. Oh, jeez. Tiny towns with no capacity to host these kind of offices. I mean, moving the tiny veterinary chemicals agency has still been a disaster. This is an argument against joined-up government. Or even having a capital city. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I live in Canberra. I'd like to see a better made argument than Peter Gleeson, I guess. Right, Lucy Khan has got a Blonde to the Truth headline and saying, if only there was a vaccination against stupidity. I couldn't help but think as I sat through a secret screening of the anti-vax propaganda film Vaxxed 2. She's blaming it on the white blonde working class who seem to feel patronised by educated medical experts. And instead put their ignorant faith in debunked conspiracy theories that, well, not all the conspiracy theories about vaccination are debunked at all. Again, vaccinate today, but 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, some really bad things actually happened. That's not debunked conspiracy. Piers Ackerman is here saying lefties and greenies will take us back into a new dark age, literally. Pandering to the green left and delivering subsidised alternative energy sources. I'd like to call them alternative. Like, ooh, they're a bit weird. Will not prevent power blackouts this summer. Oh, the coal industry falls over in the heat too. Whereas solar, just the more we want aircon, the more it cranks out. Piers is a sock puppet for a lump of coal. Claire Harvey warns that Instagram speaks and poor kids die. Shut up, Taylor Winterstein. Please stop talking about vaccination. Stop making people scared of injections that can save their children's lives. Stop endangering the children of Samoa. Taylor Winterstein is apparently a Instagrammer. Annika Smethurst writes, chalk it all up to tinkering. In these finger-pointing times, it is little wonder that Australian students recorded their worst results in the international test, triggered a frenzy of posturing. Actual results were, as usual, that despite spending less than our peers, the results were slightly above average, which some would argue is quite a good policy outcome. But, if it's an excuse to stick the boot into those lefty teachers, then that's what it's really all about, isn't it? Warren's cartoon is depicting a fireman as Superman, which is nice. It's a shame we can't take action to try and reduce the global warming that's driving these out-of-control, terrifying fires. Don't throw robotics out with the bathwater. 1950s, no golden era for schools. This is the Sunday Telegraph editorial. So this is quite a nuanced, balanced view on education, noting it is important that reform does not come at the expense of the modernisation of schooling that has occurred in the past 30 years. I'd say we need a lot more modernisation of schooling, but it's been a long time since I was in a school and I don't have kids and I'm not a teacher, so I realise I tend to have opinions on a wide range of things, but I do like to defer to the experts where possible. And it's odd that the people who actually do the teaching and study pedagogy and things like that don't tend to agree with the conservatives banging on about the 3 Rs, going back to the 3 Rs. Okay, The Good Liar movie gets 3 stars. That's Helen Mirren and Ian McKellen. It's nice how all these mature roles are rolling in now that the only people who go and pay money for movie tickets are the very old and young people with nowhere to snog. Playing with Fire, starring John Cena. It gets 2 stars. Originality goes up in smoke in reheated family comedy. So there's a movie about Coco, the star of Red Dog. It gets 3 stars. I'm not sure if... I'd rather have a new Red Dog movie than a movie about the making of Red Dog myself, but great. I've got a page on books. Let's remember that Rupert Murdoch owns significant book publishing interests. What's next for Tay-Tay? Taylor Swift has turned 30. Age comes for us all, even Taylor. That's nice. I mean, yeah. Duncan Lay reckons that Marvel has transformed into an evil supervillain. Oh, Marvel, have you never read one of your own comic books? It looks like it to me because the movie-making powerhouse has fallen to the classic trap of the supervillain. You know, the thing just as poised for world domination, they get overconfident, take it a step too far, and everything falls into a steaming heap. First, there's a whole you have to watch our TV shows on Disney Plus or else, says the man working for a company with significant pay TV interests. A literal commercial rival. I don't see that disclosed anywhere in the story, by the way, Duncan. So it's not actually Marvel, that's a Disney thing. I realise Marvel is owned by Disney now. They are accused of wrecking the upcoming Black Widow movie to suck up to China. Oh dear. Duncan's upset that he's going to have to pay for Disney Plus to keep reviewing Marvel movies. Oh well, Duncan. Oh well. 2 more pages on the new Star Wars movie. This is talking about Daisy Ridley, the wonderful star of the most recent Star Wars movies. Alright, there's a SWAT team television piece that's worth a page. Oh, it's on Foxtel. Quelle surprise. Right, Francesca Packer Barham transported 120 of her nearest and dearest to Disneyland on Friday night for an epic 25th birthday party. The seldom-seen granddaughter of the late media tycoon is no stranger to a lavish party, having a hide out Luna Park to celebrate her 21st birthday. There's certainly a lot of women wearing a lot of very low-cut dresses in the photos that have been provided to Sunday Confidential. And Dita Von Teese is in Australia selling tickets for her show and has given some pictures to the Telegraph, which have been duly run. Annette Sharp on page 110 actually mentions that bushfires are kind of horrible. And James Weir's talking about Elton John in a complete piece of boomerism. And finally, the back page is devoted to Star Wars, because why talk about real injustice in the world when, I mean, at least the Star Wars films have actually been addressing injustice and inequality in their films, which is more than this pathetic rag will do. So if we get a decent message third hand, I guess that's something. Okay, folks, that's all. I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Cheers. See you next week.